So what you see right here, guys, is just I have a palette, the tubes of paint, and my sketchbook out. So what we need to do first is we need to actually figure out what kind of wash that we need to use to start the painting, okay? So when you guys do this, you guys are going to get your, you're only going to get one color to start with, and it's going to be the color of your fabric. So I've already demoed the blue. I'll demo the red today. So the paint that comes in the tubes, guys, this is always going to come out liquid, or it's like a thick, kind of heavy-bodied paste. This is what I would recommend if you are really interested in getting into watercolor painting. This is the type of watercolor paint I recommend that you get. The reason why is that because when it comes out of the tube, it's already wet, and you don't need to do much to keep the color saturated. If you buy watercolors that are those dry cake pans, you guys are probably all familiar with those, the problem with those a lot of times is because they're already dry, you have to add water to that paint, and then it takes time for that water to soak into the cake pan to really give you a great color. Otherwise, you know, what you end up with is just a really light, washed out color. So there's no saturation, there's no boldness to it. Unless, of course, you're willing to sit there and literally watch the water get soaked up in the paint, which could take time, okay? So our goal with this paint, okay, is to make sure that you don't let it dry out, okay, from day to day. Now, if it does dry out, it's not a big deal. You just add some water to it. But again, it takes time for that water to soak up into the paint, okay, and get saturated again. So what I want you guys to do is get in the habit of every day, and I'll try to remind you, especially the first few days, is that before you kind of put everything away, take like a couple drops of water from your brush and just put a couple drops in your little paint wells so that your paint stays wet until the next time you come and start working with it, okay? So we want to keep our paint wet. It saves us a lot of time. Now, you guys have two palettes, all right? One palette is going to be used for just your straight paint, okay? And that's what I have here. So all of these right here are just the straight paint. It's not mixed with anything. All that I have done is I've added a little bit of water to my paint wells just to, again, keep my paint wet so it doesn't dry out. Now your other paint palette, this is going to be the one that you guys use to mix all your colors and make all your different washes, okay? So this is where you're going to store all your straight paint. This is where you're going to mix, all right? And if you want to, you can label it on the tape so you don't forget. Because right now you're just going to have one color. It might be hard to tell the difference. So what's the secret with watercolor painting? It's the water, okay? You need to know what the water does to not just the paper, but also the paint too. So I'm going to address what the water does with the paint. So the more water that you have to your paint, the more transparent the color is going to be, and the more kind of washed out it's going to look. If you want your color to look really bold and dark, you want less water with it, okay? So that's the secret to it. More water, you're going to get it washed out, and you're going to make it lighter. Less water, you're going to make it look darker, and it's going to be bolder. There are times when you want both of those, so it's important. You know, I'm not saying that one way is better than the other. You're going to be using both, okay? So I'm going to show you guys how to actually just start with this first wash. Now, I'll show you guys this. I have this sketchbook up here. Now this one's got, this is just to help you guys, it's a guide. You know, what should, if you have green fabric, what should your wash look like for your stripes for today? What should your wash look like if you have red? What should your wash look like if you have blue? That's what this is for, okay? So I'm going to keep that up on the board so that way when you guys are testing out your paint, like how much water you need, you can bring your sketchbook up to mine up here on the board and just check to see if you're on the right track. If it's too dark or too light, okay? So that's what that's going to be for, all right? So I'm going to do the green. So what I'm going to do, the first thing that you should do when I give you your paint today is, I've just got a bucket of clean water sitting right here, and I've got a flat brush. So because I'm going to be working on the stripes, it makes sense to work with a flat brush because I can literally paint the stripe all in one fell swoop. So it's going to save me time. I would not use a round brush for those stripes, okay? Otherwise, the only time I would actually use one is if maybe I'm in a tight area. All right, so I'm going to take just clean water, And I am going to put just like two, let's see here, I'm going to do two brush loads of water right into that paint well. And that should be enough to keep my paint wet, okay? Now again, I don't want to put too much water in that because this is my straight paint. This is my concentrated paint. If I add too much water to that, I'm just going to wash it all out. And I'm never going to get a dark color out of that, okay? So I've got that. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by I'm going to put like 2 brush loads of water into a paint well, okay? And I'm just going to start by just adding some paint color to that and just seeing where I get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, just kind of dip into the paint here a little bit. And I'm going to take just one of these and I'm going to drop the color in that. That is not going to work. I need more. I can already tell. I'm going to add one more and just see what that does. Now my paint's dried a little bit because I've had this out since third bell today, so it has dried a bit. So it's going to take a little bit. All right, so I'm going to try this, see what this looks like. This is why you need your sketchbook out, okay? You're going to use your sketchbook to test out your color or your watercolor before you paint it on your project. You never want to test it out on the painting, okay? So I'm just going to brush this on here. Ooh, that is entirely too light. Add another one. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I get the magic ratio of water to paint. I need more. And this is why this, oh, I went to the wrong one. This is why the my sketchbook here will help you guys, is that I'll just give you something to kind of compare against. I need more. And you'll notice too, guys, is that as you work off of these, like the straight paint, you'll need to go back and add more water to it, just again, so that it doesn't dry out. I need to add more still. So see, this is what happens when your paint dries. It's hard to get to the color you want. That's getting there. Oh, that's better. Okay. So that looks like that's it. So once I get to the right one, and again, I would compare it to my sketchbook. Put that there. Put it on my sketchbook so that you can get an idea of, exactly where you're at. Now, one of the other things I want to tell you about that you should know about watercolors is that they do dry a little bit lighter than what they look like when they're wet. So this is one of the paints that does that. Acrylic doesn't do that, and oils doesn't do that, except that oils will kind of yellow over time depending on what kind of varnishes you use on them. But with watercolors, what you see right here, right now, it's going to lighten up a little bit as it dries. So do consider that when you're painting, okay? So once you get your magic ratio or your magic mixture of water and paint, then you're ready to start painting. And you basically need to just start on one section of your painting, okay? So when you're painting, pick a section, and I would do, like if you're right-handed, pick something over on the far left, paint one section of stripes, and then move to another section that's not next to it, because remember, if you paint 2 sections that are next to each other and the paint's wet, you might end up bleeding into sections that you don't want. So you want the paper to all be dry when you're painting these stripes on there, okay? So paint a section on the left, skip a section, and do one that's not touching that section that you just finished. So there's that. All right. So what I want you guys to do, go ahead and get some water in your buckets. I'm going to call you guys up to my table or my back desk over there, one table at a time. You need to tell me what color you need. And then while you're up there, you can get brushes. I would recommend for the stripes, I like this one right here. The 3/4 flat is good, and then maybe one size smaller for anything that might be a little smaller. And they're all over there, okay? So, all right, go ahead and get buckets of water.